just to very briefly talk you through some of the themes that are coming out of this study. A number of things that people are talking about that will define engineering education in the future. The first, not surprisingly, blended learning, that people will increasingly move to blended learning. The second is developing campus, the learning spaces, from lecture theatres to much more open, flexible spaces that can be used in conjunction with asynchronous online learning for the really enriching on-campus, collaborative and hands-on learning. Much more focus on collaborative teaching teams, faculty instructors coming together to form much more broader coalitions of instructors to deliver education. A much more greater focus on global collaboration and sharing teaching resources across universities. Horizon scanning, so universities really looking very critically about the future of engineering education, taking COVID and saying, well, what can we learn? Where are we going? And what are our priorities? And there's a huge amount of that effort going on at the moment. A focus on sustainability and social justice, and that's really emerging very strongly from a lot of programs. The next was nurturing student well-being, which has been a real issue during COVID, and the issue of student well-being. The next is broadening students' learning outcomes, that things like resilience, empathy, identity, mental well-being have been really important during COVID, and actually a sense that those will continue to be really important and a greater priority placed on those. And then finally, new educational technologies, AR, VR, various other technologies. I just wanted to give you an example because the report will be full of case studies of good practice. I wanted to give you one from the region, so one that highlights three of these themes: collaborative teaching teams, sustainability and social justice, and broadening of student learning outcomes. And that's from the University of Technology, Malaysia. And that's a new program, that's an existing program that's been amended for online learning, which is the Introduction to Engineering course in the next slide. So I just very briefly, a course that's very much focused on sustainability and has embedded things like empathy because of the shift to online learning, instilling empathy in the students between the teams, but also actually this theme of bringing together, it's merged with the programming project in order to deliver that. So that's just one example. But on the next slide, there are around 30 case studies in the report from across the world. I'm really keen for there to include as many examples as possible from your region, from around Southeast Asia. So I'm really keen for any suggestions of best practices. So just moving on to slides, just to recap, these are the kind of themes that I will be talking about in the report. As I mentioned, changing the kind of learning spaces that we have, broadening teaching teams, much more collaboration globally, sustainability and social justice, mental well-being, embedding new learning outcomes and new learning technologies. So I really just wanted to finish by saying, please get in touch. If there are any good practices from the region, please let me know. I'm really keen that this is a report that that really highlights best practices from across the world. And actually during emergency teaching, it's really hard to sometimes find best practices because people are so focused on doing the best by their students and by their institution. Some of those conversations that happen, at the tea break in conferences or when we travel and meet each other, where we hear about best practices just aren't happening. So please do get in touch. My email address is there, and I'd be really keen to hear any good practices that you have that you'd like to share. Thank you.
So just to give you an idea, this is the number of higher education institutions in the Philippines. So as of 2017.